You think reputation protects you, but it marks you as predictable prey. Power respects only fear, and loyalty is the leash that gets you killed. You are trained to believe reputation is armor, that if enough people think you're good, competent, or respectable, you'll be protected. This belief is not naive, it is fatal. Reputation does not shield you, it frames you. And anything framed can be targeted, measured, and destroyed. Reputation is visibility with rules attached. Once people know who you are, they know how to use you. Your morals become pressure points. Your consistency becomes a map. Your past behavior becomes a contract they expect you to honor, even when honoring it costs you everything. In power dynamics, predictability is a liability. The moment you can be summarized, you can be managed. This is the lens that must be shattered, the idea that being known is being safe. In reality, being known is being cataloged, studied, reduced. You are not judged by your strength, but by your restraint. Not by what you can do, but by what you've proven you won't do. Reputation freezes you in time while the environment stays fluid. That mismatch is where men die socially, professionally, sometimes literally. Look closer. Who benefits when you guard your reputation? Not you. Systems do. Groups do. Weaker men do. Reputation is a leash disguised as honor. It keeps you compliant because you're terrified of losing status you didn't even choose. You start defending an image instead of advancing a position. You react instead of act. That is how control is outsourced. The world does not reward good men, it exploits them. It hands them responsibility without authority, expectations without leverage. You are praised right before you're used, trusted right before you're sacrificed. Reputation ensures you'll hesitate at the exact moment hesitation is punished. Fear, by contrast, compresses time. It removes debate. It enforces distance. This is not about theatrics or rage. Fear is not loud. Fear is not chaos. Real fear is quiet, calculated, and expensive to provoke. It's the understanding, unspoken, that crossing you carries consequences no one wants to test. Reputation begs for consensus. Fear needs none. When you prioritize reputation, you invite negotiation. People feel entitled to your patience, your explanation, your forgiveness. They assume access. Fear closes doors before hands ever touch the handle. It does not ask to be understood. It only asks to be respected enough to be left alone. Here is the brutal inversion you were never taught. Morality without power is decoration. Loyalty without fear is self-betrayal. Being liked is irrelevant. Being predictable is dangerous. The lens you inherited was designed for domesticated men, men meant to function, not dominate, to contribute, not control. Shattering the lens hurts because it strips meaning from things you invested in, approval, consistency, being seen as one of the good ones. But that meaning was borrowed, conditional, and revocable. The moment conditions change, so does your protection. Fear is not conditional. It scales with silence. It persists even in absence. This chapter is not asking you to become cruel. It's forcing you to see clearly. Power begins with accurate perception. And the accurate perception is this: reputation is a story others tell about you. Fear is a calculation they make for themselves. One is fragile, the other is sovereign. You don't need to be feared by everyone. You need to be capable of fear, capable enough that ambiguity surrounds you, that uncertainty works in your favor, that your absence creates restraint. Until you see the world through this lens, every move you make will optimize comfort, not survival. The old lens must die before anything else can be built. Fear is not an emotion, it is a system response. Animals understand this instinctively. Humans pretend they've evolved beyond it, then organize their entire hierarchies around it anyway. Strip away language, law, and manners, and fear is still the final governor of behavior. Not respect, not love, fear. Here is the mechanism most men never see. People do not respond to who you are, they respond to what they believe will happen if they cross you. That belief is shaped by consequence, not character. You can be virtuous and still be disposable. You can be cruel and remain untouched. The difference is not ethics, it is cost. Fear works because it collapses optionality. When fear is present, choices narrow. People stop testing boundaries. They stop improvising at your expense. They stop asking, "What can I get away with?" and start asking, "Is it worth it?" That single question is the foundation of all power structures. Fear installs it without needing reminders. Most men rely on explanation to enforce boundaries. They argue, they justify, they negotiate. This signals weakness. Explanation implies uncertainty. It implies you need agreement to act. Fear removes the need for dialogue entirely. The boundary exists because crossing it is irrational. End of discussion. Understand this. Fear is not about volume or aggression. Loud men are rarely feared. They are mapped quickly, then neutralized. True fear is economical. It is restraint paired with capacity. It is the awareness that escalation will be asymmetric and unfavorable. Fear is born when others sense you can absorb chaos while they cannot. Reputation tries to shape perception. Fear shapes behavior. That's the distinction. Reputation lives in language. Fear lives in the nervous system. One can be debated, the other cannot. Fear bypasses ideology, morality, and social conditioning. It reaches the primitive calculation every organism makes: survive or risk annihilation. This is why institutions demonize fear while quietly using it. Corporations, governments, and social groups preach safety and civility, yet enforce compliance through penalties, exclusion, and force. They want monopoly over fear. When you personally wield it, even subtly, you threaten the order. That is why you were trained to suppress it in yourself. Men are taught fear is immoral because moral men are easier to govern. A man who will not be feared must be managed through guilt. A man capable of fear does not require oversight. He self-regulates because others regulate themselves around him. This is sovereignty. Fear also preserves energy. When you are feared, you do not chase respect. You do not perform. You do not over-explain. You move selectively. Scarcity amplifies threat. Silence multiplies imagination. People fill the gaps with worst-case scenarios. You didn't create them. You simply didn't disarm them. There is a crucial asymmetry here. Being feared costs less than being liked. Likability demands constant maintenance. Fear compounds passively. One decisive action, one refusal to be exploited, one visible consequence, handled without emotion, can echo for years. People remember who ends games, not who plays fairly. This is the mechanism you must internalize. Fear is not sadism. It is deterrence. It is preemptive boundary enforcement. It is the understanding that your time, attention, and presence are privileges, not entitlements. Those who violate that understanding remove themselves. If this unsettles you, good. That discomfort is the residue of conditioning leaving your system. You were trained to associate fear with loss of control. In reality, fear is what restores it, not chaos, not anger, calculated, selective, controlled fear. Without this mechanism, every strategy fails. You can have skills, intelligence, even resources, but without fear, you are still harvestable. With it, you become expensive. And in any environment governed by scarcity, expensive men are left alone. Power does not hunt randomly. Predators don't guess. They select. And selection is based on patterns. Patterns you broadcast long before you ever realize you're being sized up. This chapter is where you learn how men are classified, tagged, and quietly exploited. The first archetype is the reputable man. He is visible, consistent, and morally legible. He believes his history speaks for him. It does, just not the way he thinks. His reliability signals endurance, not danger. He shows up. He explains himself. He honors unspoken contracts even when they disadvantage him. This man is safe to lean on, safe to overload, safe to betray slowly. He is praised publicly and drained privately. The second archetype is the high-value performer, competent, driven, ambitious. He believes output creates leverage. It doesn't. Output creates dependence on him. He becomes indispensable, which means trapped. The more value he provides, the more carefully he is controlled. His fear is loss of status, so his compliance is guaranteed. He is not attacked. He is contained. Then there is the agreeable moralizer. This man weaponizes ethics against himself. He is obsessed with fairness, transparency, and intention. He wants to be understood. He wants the moral high ground. This makes him predictable. His lines are visible. His thresholds are known. He can be pushed right up to the edge and no further because everyone knows exactly where the edge is. These three men share a fatal trait. They are readable. Readability is vulnerability. When others can predict your response, they can plan around it. They can extract value without triggering resistance. They can escalate slowly, knowing you will rationalize each step. By the time you realize you're compromised, the damage feels earned. Now observe the archetype that disrupts selection, the silent threat. This man does not advertise virtue or ambition. His behavior is minimal but decisive. He is not reactive. He does not overcommunicate. When crossed, he does not argue. He acts proportionally but irreversibly. No lectures, no warnings, no emotional discharge, just consequence. The silent threat is not feared because he is cruel. He is feared because he is unclear. His three shoals are not published. His patience is not assumed. Others cannot model him. That uncertainty forces caution. People hesitate not because they hate him, but because they cannot afford to miscalculate him. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most men are selected for exploitation not because they are weak, but because they are useful and safe. They pose no risk to extract from. Their retaliation cost is low. Their outrage is symbolic. Their boundaries are verbal. That combination makes them ideal targets in workplaces, relationships, and hierarchies. Selection happens fast. Within minutes of interaction, people test micro-boundaries, tone, timing, respect. The moment you absorb disrespect without consequence, you are categorized, not consciously but biologically. From that point on, escalation feels justified. He's fine with it. He didn't mind last time. That's just how he is. The silent threat breaks this chain early. One refusal, one withdrawal, one cold enforcement of limits. Nothing dramatic, nothing cruel, just enough to reset the calculation. Selection flips. The predator looks elsewhere, not because you won, but because you became inefficient to pursue. This chapter is not asking you to perform dominance. Performance invites challenge. It's asking you to remove the signals that mark you as harvestable: predictability, moral exhibition, excessive contribution. These are tells. They scream safety. In nature, predators avoid prey that fights back unpredictably, even if the prey is smaller, even if the prey is weaker. Injury is too costly. The silent threat leverages the same logic. He doesn't need to be the strongest. He needs to be the most expensive to misjudge. Once you understand archetypes, you stop asking why people treat you the way they do. You already know. You train them. History is not written by good men. It is written over them. Every era repeats the same pattern. Men who seek admiration rise quickly, then vanish quietly. Their names are remembered only as cautionary footnotes, if at all, not because they lacked intelligence or courage, but because they mistook respect for immunity. Respect does not stop pressure, it invites it. The respected man becomes a load-bearing structure. Everyone leans on him because he will not collapse, and because he will not collapse, no one cares how much weight he carries. When the structure finally breaks, it is replaced without ceremony. Systems do not mourn assets, they replace them. Look at power struggles across history: courts, empires, corporations, gangs. The men praised for virtue are rarely the ones who survive transitions. They are too legible, too principled, too bound by internal rules while others operate by external advantage. They hesitate when the rules change, and rules always change. Human nature is not aspirational, it is opportunistic. People align upward when it benefits them and defect downward when it's safe. The respected man assumes loyalty is moral. The feared man understands loyalty is conditional. That difference determines lifespan. Respect creates expectation. Expectation creates entitlement. Entitlement creates resentment the moment you fail to deliver. This is the trap. The more you are respected, the more you are expected to absorb inconvenience, sacrifice, compromise. When you finally refuse, the backlash is violent, not because you were wrong, but because you violated the identity assigned to you. Fear does the opposite. Fear lowers expectation. People do not feel entitled to feared men. They approach carefully, they ask less, they take less. They prepare contingencies instead of demands. Fear preserves optionality, respect consumes it. History also shows another brutal truth. Moral narratives are applied after outcomes are decided. Winners are called necessary. Losers are called immoral. The respected man believes morality protects him in advance. It doesn't. Morality is retrofitted to justify whoever remains standing. This is why reputation collapses under stress. The moment resources shrink, threats rise, or hierarchies destabilize, the respected man becomes expendable. He is seen as stable enough to absorb loss, reasonable enough to accept explanation, ethical enough to sacrifice for the greater good. He is chosen precisely because he won't resist effectively. Fear disrupts this calculus. When fear is present, decision makers look elsewhere for sacrifice. They choose the path of least resistance. They cut the compliant before confronting the dangerous. This is not cruelty, it is efficiency. The respected man often dies confused. He followed the rules. He did what was asked. He maintained his reputation. What he didn't understand is that reputation is only valuable in stable environments. In unstable environments, it becomes a liability, an anchor dragging you into obligations you didn't choose. History doesn't reward intention, it rewards positioning. And positioning is governed by leverage, not virtue. Fear is lev. Irage distilled. It signals consequence without requiring constant assertion. It survives regime changes because it adapts faster than ideology. This chapter is meant to remove the last illusion, that being remembered fondly matters. History remembers impact, not character. Survival precedes legacy. Men who are feared live long enough to be rewritten as misunderstood, controversial, complex. Men who are merely respected are erased cleanly. If you still cling to respect after this, understand the trade you are making. You are choosing temporary comfort over long-term survival. You are volunteering to be consumed when conditions tighten. History is not cruel, it is indifferent, and indifference favors men who are difficult to remove. You do not announce a shift in power. You execute it quietly, like a surgeon closing arteries before the patient realizes what's happening. Any visible transformation invites resistance. The goal is not to shock the system. It is to reprogram how the system treats you. The first move is withdrawal of excess availability. Availability is the tax you pay for being seen as safe. When you are always reachable, always helpful, always responsive, you teach others your time is abundant. Abundance invites waste. Scarcity creates caution. You do not explain your absence. Explanation reopens negotiation. Silence forces recalibration. Next is behavioral compression. You speak less. You commit slower. You react minimally. Emotional expression becomes rare and controlled. This unnerves people because it removes feedback. Without feedback, they cannot adjust strategy. They don't know if they are winning or losing ground. Uncertainty grows. That uncertainty is the soil fear grows in. Then comes selective enforcement. You do not punish everything. You punish one thing cleanly, proportionally, and without emotion. This is critical. Overreaction signals instability. Underreaction signals weakness. Precision signals capacity. The memory of consequence spreads faster than constant enforcement ever could. You must also collapse moral explanations. Stop justifying boundaries with ethics, fairness, or intent. These are invitations to debate. A boundary does not require a reason. No is a complete structure. When pressed, you repeat less, not more. Repetition drains their energy, not yours. Another shift, controlled unpredictability. You break minor patterns, change response times, alter routines, withdraw expected rewards, not randomly, strategically. The goal is to prevent modeling. When people cannot model you, they cannot exploit you. Predictable men are mined. Unpredictable men are avoided. This repositioning is not about intimidation displays. Displays attract challengers. It is about deterrence through ambiguity. Others should never be sure how far you'll go, only that going too far is a mistake. Ambiguity keeps conflict theoretical. That is where you want it. You will notice resistance at first, confusion, subtle tests, passive aggression. This is normal. The system is probing to see if the old you still exists. You do not confront the probing, you let it fail quietly. No speeches, no escalation, just non-cooperation and consequence. This phase feels uncomfortable because it violates conditioning. You were trained to fill silence, smooth tension, restore harmony. Now you let tension sit. You let others resolve it themselves. This is not cruelty. It is discipline. Surgical repositioning also requires internal alignment. You must accept being misunderstood. Fear is incompatible with being fully liked. Some bridges will burn without flame. You do not chase closure. Closure is for the weak. It reassures them the threat has passed. Most men fail here because they rush. They want results fast. Power is patient. One clean boundary enforced once can echo longer than a year of assertiveness workshops. You are not teaching lessons. You are altering cost-benefit analysis. By the end of this chapter's execution, something subtle changes. People speak to you differently. They ask instead of assume. They hesitate. They consult. You didn't demand this. You allowed space for fear to do its work. This is not dominance. This is repositioning. You are no longer an asset to be exploited. You are a variable to be accounted for. This is the point most men retreat, not because the strategy fails, but because the price becomes undeniable. You cannot carry fear while dragging the corpse of your old identity. One of them has to die, and it will not be fear. Your old identity was built for approval. Even if you told yourself it wasn't, it was. The good man, the reliable one, the reasonable one, the one who could be counted on. That identity was rewarded early, which is why you protected it. But it also came with a silent contract. You would remain predictable, ethical, and absorbent. Breaking that contract feels like betrayal, because it is. You are betraying the version of yourself that kept you safe as a boy. Identity de Ath is not symbolic, it is behavioral. You stop rescuing situations you didn't create. You stop smoothing conflicts that benefit others more than you. You stop proving you're not a threat. That last one is crucial. Men spend decades signaling harmlessness to avoid confrontation. Harmless men are consumed. You will feel guilt, not because you are wrong, but because guilt was installed as a control mechanism. Guilt activates when you violate expectations, not when you violate truth. Understand that distinction, or you will crawl back to your cage the first time someone disapproves. The replacement identity is not bad man or villain. Those are adolescent fantasies. The replacement is sovereign. Sovereignty means you are not governed by emotional debt. You do not trade compliance for acceptance. You do not apologize for boundaries. You do not rush to correct misunderstandings unless they threaten leverage. This new identity is quieter, colder, less expressive. You become harder to read, harder to rush, harder to shame. Shame only works on men who still need to be seen as good. Once goodness is internal instead of performative, shame loses its grip. There is also loss. Some people will withdraw, not because you wronged them, but because you are no longer useful in the same way. Let them go. They were aligned to your old function, not your future position. Holding on to them reactivates old patterns. You must also sever your addiction to being understood. Understanding is intimacy, and intimacy is exposure. Exposure invites manipulation. You share less, not because you are afraid, but because information is leverage. The less others know about your inner workings, the fewer tools they have to influence you. Identity replacement completes when your reactions change automatically. When disrespect no longer spikes emotion, only calculation. When silence feels natural. When walking away feels cleaner than winning arguments. At that point, fear no longer feels like an act. It feels like gravity. This chapter is the real cost of power, not effort, not strategy, but abandonment of who you were told you needed to be to deserve existence. Once that identity is dead, there is no going back. You cannot unknow what you now see. And once you no longer need permission to exist, others feel it. They may not articulate it, but they adjust. Distance increases, tests decrease, interactions become efficient. That is fear's final form, not terror but restraint. This is where the sorting happens. Not everyone who hears this will survive it. Some will nod, feel the sting, then return to their habits. They will reinterpret everything you've heard into something softer, safer, more socially acceptable. That is how weak identities protect themselves. They dilute threats until nothing changes. Understand this clearly. The world is not waiting for you to evolve. It is already selecting. Every environment, workplace, hierarchy, relationship, network is constantly running a silent algorithm. Who is exploitable? Who is expensive? Who is irrelevant? You are placed whether you consent or not. If you choose reputation, you choose visibility with no teeth. You will be praised, consulted, overworked, and ultimately discarded when conditions shift. You will be told it wasn't personal. It never is. Selection is mechanical. If you choose fear, you choose solitude, restraint, and long memory. You will be misunderstood. You will be described inaccurately. None of that matters. Fear does not require narrative alignment. It only requires that crossing you feels like a bad decision. This is the final inversion. Comfort is a tax on survival. The more you need harmony, approval, and moral validation, the more leverage others have over you. The man who needs nothing is difficult to move. The man who needs to be seen as good is infinitely adjustable. There is no balance. There is no hybrid identity. You cannot be both feared and familiar. Familiarity breeds entitlement. Entitlement invites violation. Violation demands escalation. The feared man avoids this entire chain by never allowing familiarity to rot into access. This is not a call to domination. Domination attracts resistance. This is a call to unavailability, to being non-negotiable where it matters, to exiting games silently instead of winning them publicly, to letting others feel the absence of your compliance and draw their own conclusions. Here is the final warning. Once you internalize this, you will see exploitation everywhere. In praise, in opportunity, in appeals to fairness. You cannot unsee it. That awareness will isolate you from men who still believe the myth of reputation. Do not try to save them. They will resent you for it. Selection does not care about your intentions, only your positioning, only your cost, only your willingness to let others be uncomfortable. Decide now, not emotionally, strategically. Remain respectable and be consumed slowly. Or become difficult and be left alone. There is no third path.